All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I need you guys to download today's notes, most of which are already completed. You watched the video. I know all of you at least watched it. I don't know how much you got from it, but I'll check your scores here and put them in tomorrow. So yesterday's e-learning, watch the video and answer the 5 questions. Now the video took you through the notes that I've got on the screen here, talking about different types of angles and how to name those angles. We also talked about adjacent and vertical angles, the 2 types of angles we're going to really talk about today. And then tomorrow we'll talk about complementary and supplementary angles. So just a review of yesterday. There's 4 types of angles: acute angles, which are less than 90 degrees, right angles, which are exactly 90 degrees. See a little right angle box they usually use to denote a right angle there. Obtuse angles between 90 and 180, and then straight angles, which are exactly 180. And so a straight line, completely flat, even if it's diagonal, if it's straight like that, we know it's 180 degrees. So we looked at some questions from the clock, some different times in which we get different angles, and then we started labeling the angles. So the way that you label angles, normally you will use 3 capital letters. Okay, so when you get your big ideas homework started tonight and they ask you to label these angles, make sure you're hitting the caps button on your keyboard. Otherwise, it will count it wrong if it's lowercase. Okay, because in geometry, we use capital letters. So when you normally, or when you label an angle, you normally use 3 letters, and that's because normally you can't just use 1 letter and know exactly which angle you're referring to. Now, if we're looking at angle A here, yeah, I know what angle I'm looking at. There's only 1 letter there. But if I said, now look at angle B, you could all be looking at different angles. We could be looking at this angle here, or this one here, or this one here, or maybe this right angle, or this right angle, or maybe the whole thing, which is 180 degree straight angle. So that's when we want to use 3 letters to denote which angle we're referring to. Okay, so we did some of those examples in the notes yesterday, and then we talked about vertical and adjacent angles. This was a question on your video. Which angle was adjacent to angle PJN? PJN being this angle. Of course, there's actually 2 angles that are adjacent, but this one here wasn't one of the options, so it had to be this one here. Adjacent means next to, and so think of adjacent being like 2 states, or maybe if you have a next door neighbor. Okay, if you have a property line, or maybe even a fence up, and on the other side of that fence is your neighbor's property. That fence, okay, that's a shared border you guys have. That means you have someone living next door, and that would be adjacent to. Adjacent means next to. There isn't any shared space. Doesn't mean that I'm looking for an angle inside of another angle. For example, I wouldn't say that this angle here is adjacent to the big one because it's part of a big one. But I could say this angle here is adjacent to this angle there. They have a common vertex and they share this side right here. Okay. Then we talked about vertical angles. Vertical angles are angles that are across from each other. The word we use is opposite from one another. They're opposite, and they're the same size. So in math, we call that congruent. 2 things that are the same size, we say are congruent. That means they have equal measure. Okay, you could say they're equal, and I would understand that, but I guess back when they were doing a lot of geometry stuff back in the day, they didn't have a word that you could use to say that 2 objects were equal, other than that one, congruent. Okay, you had a word for numbers being equal, but for 2 objects or angles or lines or shapes or whatever it is, they would use congruent, which meant same shape, same size, everything is equal. Okay, so this was another one of your questions here. Name an angle that is vertical from angle PJN. There's only one this time. There's angle PJN, this angle here, purple. The one that opens up opposite from it, angle KJL. And they're the same exact size. True or false? Adjacent angles are always the same size. That's false. They don't have to be. They just have to be next to each other. They do not have to be the same size. Vertical angles do have to be the same size. Okay. True or false? Vertical angles don't share any common borders. That's true. There are no common borders shared between this angle here and this angle here. What do they share? The vertex, that middle point right there. Yep, that's the only thing. Adjacent angles obviously will share that middle point as well, but they'll also share a side. So if I could say that this angle is adjacent to this angle here. All right, so this is where we left off in the notes yesterday. You told me what kind of angles these were, but we never actually found out what X was. And so that's what we're going to do today. It's not going to take us very long, and then we can start our homework tonight. Okay, so for example A, we know these are vertical angles because one angle is opening up one direction and one angle is opening up the opposite direction. What else do we know is true about vertical angles? What does that word congruent mean again? Look up your notes and tell me. What does it mean if I say that those two angles would be congruent to each other? What's that mean, Rylan? Equal measure. So if the angle on the left side is 70, what's the other angle on the right side? That's easy. X equals 70. It's pretty simple. I like equations that I don't have to solve to find X, and X is already by itself. That was nice. That's not going to be the case for this next one though. Okay. Yeah, Rylan, do you have a question?
Okay, on the homework, can all things be vertical
No, they won't all be vertical. They won't all be
and
vertical.
make them all?
No, because then it wouldn't make sense why this is titled adjacent and vertical angles. Example B, we have two angles that are adjacent to each other. That means that this angle here and this angle here, which are two different sizes, well, we think they're two different sizes, share a common border, but no common space. Okay. Now, adjacent angles are not necessarily the same size. So I can't say that the X plus 4 angle is equal to 31, like I could for the first example we did. However, one of the questions you had to answer in the video, these two angles together form what kind of angle? A right angle. And Bailey, what's the measure of a right angle? 90 degrees. So together, those two adjacent angles form or combine to make a right 90-degree angle. And so that means that the X plus 4 angle plus the 31-degree angle will add up to equal 90 degrees. Now I can solve for X by first combining these two terms that we call like terms. They're both constants. Christian, what's 4 plus 31? Okay, so that's going to give me X plus 35 equals 90. And who can tell me how we get rid of the 35 now, Javen? That's exactly right. We're going to subtract it away. And Javen, what is 90 minus 35? 55. X is going to equal 55 for this problem. Okay, so what we did is we set up an equation that we solved. So if there's one thing this chapter will do, if you're not into geometry, and typically what they say in math is that some people, depending on whether you're right-brained or left-brained, some people really like the algebra part of math and some people hate it. And then some people like the geometry part of math and some people hate it. And they say that a lot of times those that like geometry are the ones that do worse with algebra, and those that do better with algebra are the ones that do worse in geometry. Okay. That's how I was. I really struggled through geometry when I was in high school because I couldn't see big picture stuff. I was too focused on solving equations. I like that. Well, there's a little bit of both in this chapter. Okay. There's a little, for those of you that may not like the whole geometry stuff, we're still going to have some equations like that you can solve. Yes. What if you like both? Then I guess you use both sides of your brain and you're smarter than most.
Yeah, what if you don't like either one?
Then you have no brain.
Oh.
Really?
On these problems, could you just do 90 minus 31 to get the other angle?
Yes, that would tell you what the other angle is. It wouldn't tell you what X is though. So then you have to take 4 away from that, and then you know what X is. Yeah. So if we wanted to know what the other angle is, knowing that X is 55, 55 plus 4 is 59. So the other angle measures 59, but they didn't ask us to find the other angle here. They could ask you that, but they only asked you to solve for X. So if you want to check your answer, what Bailey's saying is maybe plug X in there 55 plus 4 is 59. And then you know these two angles have to make a right angle. So they have to add up to 90, do they? Does 59 plus 31 give you 90? Does it? Okay, then we have the right answer. All right. Example C, yesterday you guys said these were adjacent angles. And again, that doesn't mean anything special other than they're just next to each other. But what kind of angle do these two adjacent angles form if you combine that angle with this one? What does that make, Chauncey? A straight angle, yes. And Chauncey, how many degrees is a straight angle? 180. So we know that the 85-degree angle plus the X degree angle, which we're not sure of it, both together form this straight 180-degree angle. So kind of one of the prerequisites for this lesson is you got to know right angles are 90, straight angles are 180. You got to know that part. Okay. Acute angles can be anything less than 90, and obtuse angles anything more than 90 up to 180. So we solve that, and we're going to solve it the same way Jabin had us do the last one. What am I doing to both sides, Christian? What am I going to do to both sides of that equation? Subtract what? There you go. Okay, that will help us get X by itself. Easy way to do this one in your head. What's 180 minus 80? 180 minus 80 is 100. Now take 5 more away. 85. Now we're at 95. Yeah. So X equals 95. Of course, you can check your answer by plugging it in for X. If 95 plus 85 gives you a 180, we know we have the right answer. Example D. Rylan, your favorite. They're vertical. What does that mean again? They're the same. Exactly. Yeah. Vertical angles aren't like, oh, I have to add it together to get 90 or add it together to get 180. Vertical angles are the exact same size. So this X degree angle is equal to this right angle. And what do right angles measure? 90. That equation's already solved. X is by itself. We're ready to move on to example E. Okay, I didn't do this one with you yesterday. Those two angles, adjacent or vertical? They're adjacent. They're next to. Okay. They're adjacent, which means they share this common border. Together, if you add the angles together, it looks like you're going to get this right angle here. And what do right angles measure? 90. So what we're going to do is we're going to write down the measure of the one angle. We're going to write down the measure of the other angle. We're going to add them together, knowing that they form a 90-degree angle. So take the 2x minus 1. You don't even have to write it in parentheses. You don't have to write it in parentheses. There's nothing in front of the parentheses you have to distribute. There's no need to write it in parentheses. So take the 2x minus 1, add it with the 69-degree angle. You will get 90. So let's combine our like terms. Same signs or different signs? Different signs. Same sign, keep the sign, different sign. Subtract what's 69 minus 1? 68. Keep the sign of the larger number, then you'll be exact. There's way more positives here. So this is going to be a plus 68, not a minus 68. Drop down the 2x, drop down the equals 90. It's been a little bit since we've worked with some equations. I know we looked at a few when we did our iLearn review. There was a few they had us work with. Get rid of the 68. You're exactly right. You want to get X by itself. And I know that X can't be by itself until the 2's gone, but the 2 is actually part of the X term. 68 has nothing to do with the X term. Get rid of it first. So we're going to put a negative 68 underneath that, which means subtract 68. 90 minus 60 is 30. Take away 8 more. 22. 2x equals 22. Yeah, that 2, that was part of the X term. Now we can get rid of it by dividing. And 22 divided by 2 is 11. That's our answer. X equals 11. If you want to check your answer, see if it works by plugging in 11 right there. 11 times 2 is 22. Minus 1 is 21. 21, 69 makes 90. So we know we have the right answer. You can check it just by taking your answer and plugging it right back to that angle to see if that's what you get. That's really all I had from the notes. We can look at a couple of homework questions. Actually, I think I have 4 on here. These are ones that are always true, sometimes true, and never true. These ones really test your knowledge of the material. So always true, sometimes true, or never true. Number 21, when the measure of angle 1 is 70, the measure of angle 3 is 110 degrees. Degree symbol there. Would you say that is always true, sometimes true, or never true, and be ready to explain why you think it? Rylan, why do you say never true? Your favorite. And what do we know about vertical angles? They should be equal, right? Vertical angles should be. If angle 1 is 70, then angle 3 should also be 70. It should never be 110. So this one is never true. Not even sometimes true. They are always the same size. Those opposite angles are. Number 22, when the measure of angle 4 is 120 degrees, the measure of angle 1 is 60 degrees. Eliana, what do you think? Is that always true, sometimes true, never true? Why is it always true? Would it help if I told you that you were right? It is always true. But do you know why you're right? Could you help explain, Bailey?
It's always true because if you just take away the arrow between 1 and 4, it's a 180 degree more straight angle.
You're exactly
so that
right.
Then 120 plus 60 is 180.
So what Bailey's saying is if you take away the line between the angle between them, they really, angle 1 and angle 4 together make a straight angle. Straight angles measure 180. 60 plus 120 equals 180. This is always true. Okay. Not every pair of adjacent angles will add up to 180, but when they sit on a straight line, they definitely will add up to 180 because straight lines are 180 degrees. Okay, so that is always true. Number 23, angle 2 and angle 3 are congruent. Always, sometimes, or never true. This one I haven't heard from yet. Elena, give it a shot. You think sometimes? Give me an instance of when they could be the same. Because that's what congruent means, right? Same size. What's an example of when they could be the same? They are not equal if you look at the drawing, but your answer is correct. It is sometimes true. If you look at the drawing, you'll see that angle 2 is an obtuse angle. Angle 3 is an acute angle. Of course, you can't be obtuse and acute at the same time, so they can't be equal the way they drew it. But they never told us what angle measure angle 2 or 3 were. Eliana? So if the lines would have looked like this, you're exactly right. Angle 2 would be a right angle, 90 degrees. Angle 3 could also be a right angle. They could be the same size. The way they drew it wasn't. But if they said angle 2 was 90 degrees, I think we'd have to change how we look at it, right? Angle 3 would be 90 degrees then. So they could be the same size. But unless angle 2 is exactly 90 degrees, angle 3 is going to be something different. So we'll just have to put sometimes here. We'll have to put sometimes. Even if there's only one instance to where it doesn't work, we still have to qualify that as sometimes true. Yes. Okay, number 24, the measure of angle 1 plus angle 2. So these two angles, okay, equals the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 4. What do you think, Eliana? That is always true. You are correct. Angle 1 and angle 2, the two that I've highlighted red, sit on a straight line. That tells you that together they'll add up to what? Not 90, 180. Meanwhile, angle 3 and angle 4 also sit on a straight line. They're just on the bottom side of it. So they'll add up to 180. So of course, they'll always be equal. What is 180 plus 180 equal? 360 all the way around, right? So if you go all the way around that line in a circle, that'd be 360 degrees. So half 180 above, 180 below, they're the exact same. So that is always true. Okay. Now we have 7 minutes, and I know some of you have started tonight's homework. Is there a certain homework problem you'd like to look at, Eliana? Number 18 from tonight's homework. Okay. If I were you guys, I'd write this one down in the notes because you can come back to it because you're going to come back and look at these homework answers here. Oh, that's nice. I don't have the, darn it. Okay, I do have it. What number was it? Number 18. The iron cross is a skiing trick in which the tips of the skis are crossed while the skier is airborne. I wouldn't know. I don't live up north and don't ski very often. And if I did, you wouldn't see me doing tricks. You'd see me just trying to make it down the hill without falling. Okay. Find the value of X in the iron cross shown. So the skis here are forming two lines. Question is, are the angles that you see vertical or adjacent? Remember, adjacent means side by side. They are vertical. And what do we all know about vertical angles? Same size. So I'm not going to take the 2x plus 41 and add it to 127 and try to get 180 or 90 or anything like that. If they're the same size, I know that the 2x plus 41 angle is equal to the 127 degree angle. Okay? That's what I think. They're equal. So I solve for x, knowing that the 2x plus 41 has to give me 127. Grayson, what's the first thing I should do to start solving this backwards? What's my constant number? What can I get rid of right now on the left side? Yep, let's subtract 41 from both sides. Grayson, tell me what 127 minus 41 is. You might need your calculator. You won't need it as much as probably you did last chapter. But yeah, some stuff like this, you'll want that calculator. 86, so 2x, because this is gone, equals 86. Now I need to divide by 2. Ava, can you tell me what 86 divided by 2 is? 43. X equals 43. And that's all we had to solve. They didn't ask me what the angle actually equaled. If they did, that would have been simple. It's 127. That's what the angle is equal to. But I had to solve for the X portion of that angle, and that's 43. There are other homework questions? For those I know, again, you can ask me tomorrow. This homework is not due until Monday. So tomorrow is your day 2 where you can ask questions. I know some of you haven't started it yet, and that's fine. Come in tomorrow and we can look at some homework questions.
Or we can have homework tomorrow.
You do, 7.2. Yeah. It'll be very similar to this one. It'll be more about the 90 and 180 degree angles than it will about the vertical angles. But yeah, since you've already done problems that add to 90 and add to 180, it should be very much a review. What's due tomorrow? The head puzzle, which I think I checked everyone in here at this point has watched it now. So we should be good. So the way that that's going to be scored is, and if you haven't watched it, if you're a virtual student, you haven't watched it, make sure you watch it because that's due tomorrow. If you haven't watched it, the way that it's scored is you get 5 points for watching the whole video and an additional point for each question you get right. So it's actually out of 10 points, like most homework assignments are. All of you that watched it will start off with 5. And then every question you got right gives you an additional point. So if you got 4 out of 5 questions right, you're going to get a 9 out of 10. Got 3 questions right, you're getting 8 out of 10. Okay. Yes. Yeah, so on Google Classroom, they didn't know that I was giving you 5 points just for watching the video. So your 8 out of 10, 80% is going to turn into a 9 out of 10, 90%. Yeah. They were giving you 2 points for each question. So you got 4. That was why they gave you 8 out of 10, 80%. You're going to end up with a 90% once I put it in Skyward. Skyward's what you want to look at. Because I don't use Google Classroom for grading. I don't know if you guys noticed that. You rarely turn anything in on Google Classroom anyways. I just grade it in Skyward. So, all right, that's it. You guys are here for a couple more minutes if you think you can get a couple extra problems done. Okay. And my virtual students, you guys are dismissed, and let me know if you have any questions.